Presiding Officer, is that it? After 18 years in power, and in what could be John Swinney's last year in government, is that the best
Thank you.
he can
Let's
do?
hear one another.
It's embarrassing. Nicola Sturgeon is probably messaging to say it's awful right now. Although it's interesting to see that she turned up to do a press hurdle outside but didn't bother coming in for John Swinney's programme for government. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some things in here that I agree with, especially the bits that he's nicked from Scottish Labour. It's not exactly the borrowing powers that I thought the SNP had in mind. But, Presiding Officer, this statement fails to meet the challenges or ambitions of the people of Scotland. No recognition of the scale of the crisis in the NHS delivered by the SNP, with 1 in 6 Scots on a waiting list. Where is the plan to fix it? No recognition of the fact that our schools are falling down the league tables delivered by the SNP. No plan to fix it. No recognition of the fact that 10,000 children in Scotland are homeless, delivered by the SNP. Where is the plan to fix it? And no recognition of the billions of pounds of public money wasted, delivered by the SNP. Where is the plan to fix it? And the truth is, they have no plan, because after nearly 2 decades in government, if the SNP had a good idea, they would have delivered it by now. Instead, all we are left with is sticking plasters to cover and distract from the damage that the SNP have caused. It's an SNP government running down the clock. Next year, Scots will face a choice: a third decade with the SNP, or a new direction and new leadership for Scotland.
Let's hear Mr Sarwar.
They don't want to hear it, Presiding Officer, but John Swinney has been at the heart of government for nearly 2 decades. So how can the man who broke it now be the one to pretend he can fix it?
First Minister.
Presiding Officer, on the various issues that Mr Sarwar raised, let me just say that, of course, on the health service, we've seen increases in inpatient and day case activity over the 12 months to December 2024, and I cited in my statement the various improvements that have been made in the performance of the National Health Service based on the new funding that the Government has made available. And of course, that funding is more significant in this coming financial year. And what we are doing, of course, is helping the National Health Service to recover from the impact of the COVID pandemic and the delays in treatment. And Mr Sarwar managed to breeze his way through that whole question without mentioning the impact of the global pandemic and its disruption to our healthcare services. On the question of schools, of course, we are seeing the levels of literacy and numeracy that have been recorded in our schools at much higher levels, and the attainment gap being at its narrowest in a number of the key aspects of literacy and numeracy assessment that are made. And on housing in Scotland, we have delivered more affordable housing per head of population by a significant margin compared to the developments in England, and very significantly compared to the situation in Wales. And of course, when I come to the question of Wales, I'm interested that today my counterpart in Wales, Eluned Morgan, the First Minister of Wales, has been setting out her vigorous disagreement with the direction of the United Kingdom government, the United Kingdom Labour government that's been elected, the last time people were faced with a choice of government. And of course, we've heard none of that from Mr Sarwar, because he has been right behind the UK government and its welfare cuts to some of the poorest in our country, right behind the UK government on no action on the WASPy women, right behind the UK government on the cuts to welfare, to winter fuel payments for pensioners in our country. So I think the people of Scotland will be able to look at the contrast between an SNP government that's delivering for the people of Scotland and a Labour government in the United Kingdom that's selling out the poor and the disadvantaged in our country and penalising pensioners. I think they'll choose the SNP.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Today's flimsy programme for government is just more of the same from the SNP, and it will do little to restore public trust. No wonder that around 1 in 3 of their own MSPs couldn't even be bothered to turn up to listen to this. And that's because John Swinney is the politician who's failed to deliver for the past 18 years, the politician who's wasted more public money than anyone else, the politician who is now desperately trying to clear up his own mess. John Swinney can't possibly be the solution, because John Swinney has caused the problems. My party has long campaigned for greater spending on GPs who are on the front line of the NHS. John Swinney has today promised to increase GP numbers, but this same promise was made by the SNP 8 years ago, and it has not been kept. Does John Swinney think anyone out there will actually believe him this time? My party has also been the lone voice of opposition to repeated SNP income tax rises. Hard-working Scots pay £1.7 billion more than they would under tax bans for the rest of the UK. John Swinney today commits to stop turning the screw on Scottish taxpayers, but he's previously broken a similar promise not to raise taxes. So why did John Swinney not take this opportunity to reduce the painful tax burden that he has inflicted? People desperately want to see politicians focus on the key issues that impact their lives. Yet John Swinney says he's going to use even more taxpayers' money to try and find an economic case for independence. Well, he's not going to find one, because there isn't one. This is more of the same from the same old John Swinney, a politician who's completely obsessed by a lifelong pursuit of breaking up the United Kingdom. Does John Swinney really think it's right to waste time, energy and public money on this divisive nonsense when so many other issues need our urgent attention?
First Minister.
I see my appeal for common ground to be constructed in the Parliament has not exactly made much headway with Russell Findlay this afternoon, but it will not stop me continuing to try to find some common ground to make progress, Presiding Officer. On the question of GP services, the Government, as I indicated in my statement, will be allocating a greater proportion of new NHS funding to the primary care sector, which will benefit GPs and will result in the expansion of about 100,000 appointments within the GP sector on key conditions. On the question of income tax, I remind Parliament of the comment I made in my statement that the majority of workers in Scotland pay comparatively less tax and income tax than would be the case south of the border. They also pay lower council tax and water bills than is the case south of the border. And of course, if they send their children to universities in Scotland, they don't pay tuition fees either, which is a very formidable saving for families that lend to bed to the country, beyond the fact that, of course, if they have young children, they'll get access to early learning and childcare, which I presided over the expansion of as Education Secretary, which gives a benefit to families that lend in bed to the country. So all of those issues are relevant to the question about income tax. But the other point that's crucial about income tax is that Mr Findlay persists in coming to Parliament and telling us that he wants to reduce income tax, but he won't tell us about the cuts in public spending and public services that he will make to pay for it. And that's just one of the big flaws in the arguments that Mr Findlay puts forward, £1 billion flaw in the argument. Now, lastly, Presiding Officer, Mr Findlay has raised my support for Scottish independence, which is, of course, a lifetime commitment that I have given to the question of independence. And one of the reasons why I want Scotland to be independent is I want Scotland to be a country that can enjoy a higher standard of living than is current within the United Kingdom. Why do I say that is more relevant today? Because of the Brexit that was championed by the Conservative Party, standards. Well, all of the evidence demonstrates my case that Brexit has resulted in a decline in the standard of living of people in this country. Brexit has resulted in a decline in the standard of living of people in this country. And the way for Scotland to overcome the damage of Brexit is to rejoin the European Union, and that's by being an independent country.